Joining me now, got it out there, on the Knicks Film School Podcast. I can't be this loud for the rest of the episode. Tom, you're going to have to do all the work. You know him from, well, first of all, if you're a reader of the Knicks Film School newsletter, he has guest contributed the best writing that has ever appeared in that newsletter. More importantly than that, he is the co-host of Talkin Knicks. He is also with, of course, Jomboy Media, the one, the only, Tom Piccolo. Hello, sir.
Hey guys, Jonathan, how you doing, man? You sound okay. You know, before we started recording, I was wondering if this was actually going to happen, but you've put on a brave face here, and you're sounding good now. We're ready to go.
You know what it is? It's not enough that I stand for Tom Thibodeau. I need to now become Tom Thibodeau.
Did you plan that? Did you have that like written down somewhere? Or is that off the cuff? That's solid. That's good stuff.
Tom, not my first rodeo, my friend. As you know. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing okay. Last night's loss was tough. I kind of slept worse because of it, I think. I woke up to some relatively angry tweets, maybe tweets angrier than I'm used to, kind of coming at me for some of my criticisms of certain players. And I made the foolish mistake of responding to tweets, which I never do. I honestly, I'm pretty good at leaving those be. But for some reason this morning, I was a little cranky and engaged, and I regret doing so.
So in your defense, and again, for anybody who may be just dropping in on this Knicks season today, why anyone would do that, I have no idea. But this is not the first tough Knicks loss. There have been, I don't know how I lost count of the amount of tough Knicks losses. For whatever reason, this one stuck with me today too. We're recording this on Tuesday night, and I actually had to. I very, very rarely will I write about a game like a second day. Like I'll do my recap at night, and then like, okay, it's off. It's on to the next thing. And I had to like write more about it because there was just something about that game, and maybe we'll get into some of the reasons possibly why, but that stuck with me. So I'm going to defend you there. I cannot defend you for engaging on social media, but I have to ask, what players would you be so bold as to criticize on this Knicks team with nothing but perfection across the board?
I mean, look, I definitely sent my share of critical tweets last night. The one in particular I sent was about RJ Barrett's point of attack defense, defending Russell Westbrook. To be fair, he likely shouldn't have been on Russell Westbrook. Miles McBride was in the game. Deuce should have been on Russ, but RJ found himself guarding Russ as the ball handler, and he gave up just pretty much a straight line drive. He had, LeBron screen for him on the right, and Russ rejected the screen and went right to the rim, had an easy layup. And, RJ got blown by. It looked like kind of cartoonish. I don't want to start here like slandering RJ Barrett. We did a little bit of that on the last time I was on. And
what happened?
Well, and I think we were a little prescient with that conversation, but in the time since, there are areas in which he has gotten better. He deserves credit in the areas he's gotten better. It was just a singular tweet I sent out, and there were people coming at me like, "Oh, you don't tweet about Julius Randle's breakdowns," and then I just go and copy paste one I'd just done 10 minutes earlier.
You're copying and pasting that. You're now you've gone. You're lost. You're in the darkness.
No, nobody wins in those conversations. But, last night was particularly troubling. I think that 24 hours removed, we have a little bit more distance and like can kind of take a step back. But I think the reason for it, in my opinion, is just there were shades of last year that came about that showed just kind of how scarred this fan base is, that this fan base has been hurt before by the Thibs Randle combo and the way they empowered each other. And there were just some major flashbacks at the end of that Lakers game and throughout the Lakers game. And I think that sort of triggered that, those feelings, that resentment bubbled up to the surface.
Good word, triggering. On the RJ play, well, I don't want to start off talking about RJ. We'll get to RJ later, but like, it was as if he was a soccer goalie in penalty kick situation where it's like the only chance you're going to have is if you guess left or right, and he guessed wrong, and that was the end of the play because there was no chance of recovering after that. Yeah, it was not the greatest moment for RJ. Actually, funny, like thinking back to his game, there were some not great moments. And like he did score 3 baskets in the fourth quarter, but like 2 of those it was more the credit to the person who threw him the pass on the fast break. And then there was the moment where he just seemed to drop the ball. But like thinking back, it wasn't like there have been other games from RJ this year where I've been more bothered by his performance, which is maybe why I wonder when you combine it with the 3 buckets he scored at the beginning of the fourth quarter, however they may have come about, is why he got perturbed and did not want to speak to anybody after the game. I want to get back to that. Let's stick with Julius and Thibs because that's we're back to square one, right? It's like what we can never escape. Do you feel like this is going to have a lingering effect moving forward? Like based on, and I don't want you to take it from like a narrative point of view because you watch as much film as anyone. Like, have you seen? Do you think this is a one-off, or do you think there are signs that have been like slowly trickling about, like, oh, we're headed down a bad path?
I'm gonna take the optimistic end here, and I do think it's closer to a one-off than a pattern. I mean, look, Julius Randle. Like I was just going through kind of my past tweets from earlier in the season. Kind of like around that winning streak time, the 9-game winning streak. And since Julius Randle has been an absolute stud this year, like let's not like split hairs here. Just on Sunday, I was on Talkin Knicks saying how Julius Randle had the better all-star case over Jalen Brunson. A little bit of that was recency bias, but a lot of it is just how he can still physically impose his will on a game that Jalen Brunson, as skilled as he is, as quick as he is, as shifty and crafty and all the words we want to use, it's still the game of basketball where being 6'8", 6'9", and 250 pounds helps a great deal. Like Julius Randle has been a monster on the boards. We've needed him in Mitch's absence on the boards. Yeah. This one game of him kind of reverting back and frankly just not making his shots, right? Like if he made his threes, like
he was 2 of 9, right? From 3, which is like
and if he were 4 or 5 of 9, like we'd be having different conversations. He missed his shots, and there's still a part of this team that goes as Randle goes. Like even with the addition of Brunson, like if Julius Randle is playing well, this team is going to play well. And if he's not playing well, it is really hard to overcome that given his usage and his gravity and how much he shoulders. It's really tough to overcome a bad Julius game, probably more so than any player.
But here's the thing though, right? Is there have been times this year, not a long time, but I think maybe I'm talking about his defense. I think it picked up, I want to say somewhere in December. I don't think it was like an overnight thing, but I think it was gradual. Like we started to see some signs of it. And then more recently, you're getting a few more instances, perhaps every game of, oh, Julius he's not going to come out and contest this one. He's just going to hang around and whatever happens, happens. It's like, and then the balance with him to me is so delicate where you get, and like, it's all crazy Knicks fans like us. It's like if there's 3 plays where it's his responsibility and he's not rotating or he's not coming out or he's getting lost in translation, like those are the plays we're going to think about and we're going to remember. So if it's like 2 or 3 more of those plays and then it's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 more missed shots than usual and you put it together and it's like he goes from being this great second time redemption story to being a guy who everybody was telling me, get him the hell off my team last night, Yeah,
I do wonder. I mean, I know everyone has harped on it at this point, but Mitch's presence on the defensive end and just kind of what that does psychologically to a defense and knowing he's back there and, like it's tough. It's tricky to quantify something like that until you just like look at on-off numbers and how bad the defense has been since Mitch has been out. And it's funny to say that just because like Isaiah Hartenstein has had his best stretch of games since Mitch has gone down. Like that to me is one of the more encouraging things. Like when Mitch does come back, we have ideally we have a backup center who can play really well and keep this team afloat while Mitch is out. I think Sims has had some growing pains, and that's not shocking at all. Like, he was a second-round draft pick. He's very raw, and he's the starting center right now and being asked to do a lot. So I'm not like going to crush Jericho Sims for it. It's the situation he's been put in. But I do wonder, like, when Mitch comes back, if we're going to see a different level of continuity on the defensive end, if we're going to see Julius Randle, kind of revert back to some of those better habits, just because of how the team as a unit is going to perform. I think defense is more symbiotic like that, and it's less individual performances. And then, just real quick back on the offensive end, I think that I'm a little bit more worried about the offense than I think some people are. And I know people point to the offensive rating, and I think on Cleaning the Glass right now, the Knicks are like, I want to say top 7 in offensive. They're sixth. They're sixth in offensive rating right now on Cleaning the Glass. And I mean, that's incredible. I know we're like 50 something games into the season. I still am starting to question how sustainable that is, because it relies so heavily on guys making tough shots. Like, Jalen Brunson is an elite tough shot maker, but he is going out, and we see this reflected in the bottom of the league assist percentage of this team sports. Jalen Brunson has to go create his own mid-range looks. And when he's not Julius Randle, it's a your turn, my turn type of offense. Julius Randle is then going to go create his own types of looks. And credit to them, they're very good at it. But I do wonder how sustainable it is. I mean, especially, God willing, come playoff time, that when teams can really load up on them, that's gonna be a whole different story. But even as this season winds down, or as we enter the trade deadline, like, it's just asking a lot of these guys to continue night after night to go out and create their own looks against set defenses. It's really, I'm curious if that's gonna be sustainable.
I'm not saying that sustainable is the wrong word, but and to be clear, sitting here right now, do I think they're going to finish as whatever Cleaning the Glass, Andrew says it's sixth best offense in the league, according to Cleaning the Glass, which filters out garbage time, which is why you might get a slightly different number between that page and the NBA's page. Do I think they're going to finish the season 6? No. Do I think they're going to finish the season top 10? Maybe borderline. But even so, if let's say they finish the season 11th in total offense, right? Cleaning the Glass or the regular stats, that would be a great number for this. Like, given their talent and given how the NBA has been for however long we've been watching it, and certainly longer, Superstars League, the whole thing, like, that would be a really, really good accomplishment. And it'd be something to, like, they're doing something right, you would think. So I want to more direct it to, but the way you phrased it was what I agree with, which is where you get into and what do we see in the fourth quarter? We see defense that is like defenses that we see in the fourth quarter are going to resemble defenses that you see for 4 quarters in a playoff game. And it's so hard, right? It's so hard. And I think, and I can't believe I'm going to somehow put a Thibodeau a compliment in here. But I think one of the things they do well is anytime a defense gives them a weak spot, they are pretty good at finding the weak spot and exploiting the weak spot. And like, defenses will give you weak spots throughout games, and they're generally, I think, pretty good at finding those holes. And when a defense isn't fully locked in, we've seen this team be able to score. Obviously, they have to, because to be 6th in offense. But I think you're completely right. I just don't know. And this maybe is a good transition point. I don't know, with the current personnel, is there really that much that you could do to change that? Now, you want to say a different coach would be able to revamp things with this same personnel? How big of a difference do you like? What are your thoughts on this? Just
I'm not a fire Thibs guy. I know I'm probably somewhere more in the middle of the spectrum, whereas as you are about as pro Thibs as anyone I know. And there are those who want to fire him even after wins. You know what I mean? So there are certainly flaws that he has, and I think they're fairly clear. But I think we do have to remember what we all expected this team was going to be coming into the season. I want to say ESPN predicted 39 wins for them. I think Vegas had the line at like 37.
I think it was 39 and a half, but I it
was okay. I mean, even
below 500.
Yeah, below 500. This team so far has outperformed expectations. I know they have like the second hardest schedule remaining, according to Tankathon, in terms of opponents' win percentage. So that, that doesn't bode well. And certainly you could see the offense, start to tick down because of that strength of schedule. But, to your point, I think that my big thing is that the offense needs a little bit more spontaneity. Like, we know what Brunson, RJ, and Randle are each trying to do, right? That doesn't mean you can stop them because they're all so good at it. Like, Brunson's going to do it with his craftiness and shiftiness. RJ is just going to do it with like brute force. And Randle's going to do it with like his kind of unique combination of size and speed and skill. But yeah. the one guy, I mean, and Grimes, even like, he's either going to shoot it or he's going to rip through and go to the, like, we've all seen what he does, and it can be devastating to defenses, but it is not a surprise at this point, right? Teams are starting to expect him to dump it off to the bigs when he drives, or, and when he finishes, that's not a surprise either. I think the one guy you can say who kind of sparks a little spontaneity is Immanuel Quickley. Like, he's the one guy who, and I think it's why he's my favorite player to watch. He's the one guy he's my favorite young guy. He's my favorite player to watch on this team. Certainly. Like,
I thought, how long has that been the case? I'm genuinely really interested in this. How long has it been IQ for you?
I mean, at least since the beginning of the season.
Okay. All right.
Like, awesome. I think that he's the one guy who, when I'm watching, I'm like, I genuinely don't know what he's about to do. Like, he can pull up from three, from way too deep, even take a bad shot. And even that, just like a little bit of danger, I'm like on edge. I'm like, he could do something crazy right now. Or he can run a pick and roll. He can get to the mid-range, and now he's hitting mid-range jumpers. He can get to floater range, where he's been lethal this year. And he's been finishing better, taking more shots at the rim. He's been kicking the ball out. Like, he's just the one guy who I think can kind of do anything and keeps the defense on their toes to the point where it's impossible to know what he can do because he has so many an array of skills. And it makes it the most fun player to watch for me. Do you agree? Do you have a different favorite guy? Or do you not think of it in terms of favorites? You're too close to it.
Oh, no, I'm not. Come on. Listen, I'm still sitting on my couch like a crazy person. I've frightened, well, no, not frightened my older daughter a few times recently, but like, she actually laughs at me because she's like, what is my father doing? He's like, she's never heard me like, or because she was too young, I think, to remember the We Here season and how I reacted to maybe some of those. Anyway, I'm going off track. No, Brunson was my favorite player to watch for most of this year, just because, I mean, I knew what he could do, but to see it every night is like, oh my God, this guy's like a magician. And he is. And that's been awesome. Quickley has given me a feeling, excuse me, I'm trying to power through, that I don't think I have had watching a young player, honestly, ever on this team. Because do you want to take a guess at the one guy that is in my mind that's close, but he wasn't here for long enough because he got traded away?
Oh, interesting.
High draft pick.
Because the first guy I thought of was Shumpert for some reason. Like, he just had kind of the flair. And
because Shumpert never advanced and grew as a player anywhere close to this. I don't think, at least to this degree. Well, in New York, maybe he did after he left. I don't think so though. So I'm thinking. So before Shumpert. Yeah, before Shump.
Oh, who are we thinking here?
He was traded. The guy I'm thinking of was traded for a guy who played with Shump. Was it
Gallo?
Yeah, Gallo.
Yeah.
And Gallo was here for 2.5 years, and really he wasn't, because one of those years was completely cut short by injury, and it wasn't even really a year. But like, it, and maybe that fed into it, because his second year he had a stretch, especially towards the end of his second year, where it was like, oh my God, this guy's a real, like, he's not like a superstar or anything, but this is a real deal. That's the only thing I can compare it to, and I think Quickley's growth has superseded that, because, and this is the thing I feel like I keep writing in different ways. I don't know how many more ways I could write it, but like, with the caveat that he is not a superstar offensive engine creator, or like whatever you want to, one of those guys. With that caveat, he does nothing wrong. He takes nothing off the table. And not like when we used to obsess over Frank Ntilikina and be like, he's the perfect player. He's like, look at him dig and look at him hedge and look at him whatever else.
I've got some embarrassing bylines in various blogs writing about Frank Ntilikina. So preaching to the choir there. I compared Frank Ntilikina to more than one Hall of Famer in my early blogging days. Feel free, any enterprise. I've never deleted it. Gone back and like erased my old tweets. I should probably do that, but oh boy, there are some doozies. Anyway, like this is real. Like this is when we say he doesn't take anything off the table. I think that's, unless you want to, he's, he doesn't have great size on defense. Like he's still limited by the fact that he's like a guard. But I mean, it's just like, what more can you want from the guy? And to think about how much he's grown, and now the offense has been coming around the last, whatever you want to say, 2, 3, 4 weeks, even further back. It's such a delight. And I feel like that's probably a good transition. So you mentioned 3 players: RJ Barrett, Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle. Jalen Brunson's not going anywhere. He's not getting traded. I guess if Leon Rose gets fired at some point, maybe then whoever comes in to replace him may trade Jalen Brunson. But until that day comes, Jalen Brunson's not going anywhere. So then we have RJ Barrett and Julius Randle. And one of those guys, as we're sitting here, it's Wednesday at 8:30, less than 24 hours right now. One of those guys might be named to the NBA All-Star team. The other guy is not going to be named to the NBA All-Star team. And you alluded, I think before we started talking before we started recording, to some defensive metrics that are out there on RJ that paint him as perhaps not having the best year on the defensive end. By the way, I checked your deflection statistic today. Do you want to know? Is it bad?
So there, as far as I could tell, there have been 170 players in the NBA this year who have played at least 1,000 minutes. Of those 170 players, you want to know how many players have fewer deflections per 36 minutes than RJ Barrett?
Are there 10?
Well, one of the digits in the number that you just guessed is correct.
So like 11. No, okay. So you're saying there's just one?
It's actually 0. He's last.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's tough.
0.8 deflections per 36 minutes for a guy whose role in this defense is to be the free safety, essentially, on a lot of possessions. Which we see Quickley do, and Quickley has 2 deflections per 36 minutes. Deuce McBride, who I know nobody's asking RJ to be Deuce McBride, he has 2.6 or 2.4 per 36 minutes. And it's like, I'm at this point where I know everybody thinks I hate RJ Barrett. I don't. I have skepticism about his ceiling. I have not given up on him as a player. I still believe there is a ceiling there. But it does feel like we have very quickly arrived at this crossroads where this team should not go forward with these 3 players together for that much longer. And I mean, I would just ask you, like, what do you think they should do? What do you think they will do? I'm curious.
Well, I guess it kind of depends on what the expectation is for these 2. Like, if you look at the most used lineup this season, it's Brunson, Grimes, RJ, Randle, and Mitch. And that
is good.
5-sum is +8 per 100 possessions. It's in the top third of the NBA in lineups. That's for cleaning the glass. And you poke around a little bit more in the data, and what you see is like what those 2 guys need, maybe unsurprisingly, is an elite rim protector. Like when Mitchell Robinson is on the floor with those guys, and it doesn't matter who the other 2 are. Like when Mitchell Robinson is with Randle and RJ, they are a good unit. So there have been 1,300 possessions with Mitch and RJ and Randle that they have a +7.1 net rating. Then you go over 1,200 possessions without Mitch, it's a minus 10.7 net rating. That's a 17.8 points per 100 possessions difference. And it's because, like, you know, those two, we know RJ and Randle are imperfect players in a lot of ways, and they have overlapping skill sets, but you know, they're still good basketball players. And like, and I think that RJ is going to someday be a very good basketball player. I do think that he hasn't been that this year, and that's okay. Like all the youth caveats and all that, but RJ can still be a part of very good 5-man units. And he can still do that with Julius Randle. I think that the issue is just kind of how constricted the Knicks are in when they can make this work. And it's when this one guy is on the floor. They need Mitchell Robinson. If he goes down with an injury, we're in trouble. Like, and it's probably not surprising. RJ and Randle have struggles defensively. No secrets there. They need someone to clean up the messes. Mitch is that guy. Mitch is probably underpaid on his contract, considering how important. He's probably more important to the Knicks than he would be to other teams. So maybe other teams wouldn't value him in the same way. But the way the Knicks are constructed, Mitchell Robinson he's irreplaceable. And I think we've seen some of that since he's gone down.
That's such a great call about the value to the Knicks versus the value to other teams. Because me and Jeremy talk a lot, or have talked a lot, about Mitchell Robinson's contract, and like it's aged quite well, and it's a declining contract. But like you do, not that they're looking to trade him, but like you do wonder, I guess, if another team were to look at it. But it's not only the way the Knicks are constructed, but it's the scheme that they run. And obviously, that's Tom, and not you, Tom Thibodeau. I just realized you share a name with the head coach. How's that?
Man, when I listen to your guys' show and like I hear you just name dropping Tom all the time, I'm like, I perk up a little bit. I'm like, because sometimes you actually are talking about me.
I do talk about you. Yeah.
You know, every blue moon, I get brought up, and I'm like, you know, I do like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme, right? I point at the screen like, oh.
Oh man, no, okay. So thank you for pointing out those numbers. You're absolutely right. By the way, I knew I wasn't making it up. The Knicks' fourth quarter offense this year, to your point, as apparently Jeremy Grant is being evaluated for a concussion on the day it was reported he turned down $112 million. That's interesting. Fourth quarter offense this year, they are 23rd in the league. Some interesting teams behind them, by the way. The Warriors, the Blazers, the Bucks, the Grizzlies. Weird, wild, wacky stuff in the NBA this season. But yeah, the Knicks' fourth quarter offense hasn't been good. And I guess that gets back to your original point. Like, yes, the numbers with Mitch have been good, but I do still wonder about the viability, you know, of this group long term. Because again, if you go under the premonition that to become a contending team, you're going to get another, like a ball dominant guy, because that's what stars are. If you're not a ball dominant guy, you're not a star. So like, well, then it doesn't make sense to have like four guys who want the ball or need the ball, and you're starting. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but like, again, I do feel like the trade deadline is coming up in a week, and you were hearing OG Anunoby's name. And OG Anunoby, what is OG Anunoby? He's a defense first player who can very much occupy this kind of hybrid role where he could spot up behind the arc, and he could do that successfully. If you need him to put the ball on the floor and create a little bit, he's shown the ability to do that too. So it's like, I don't know. I'm probably just getting ahead of myself, and it's just, this is where the week's conversation is led. But that's the only reason I wanted to talk through this.
Yeah, I mean, there's some of that kind of cross that bridge when we get there. You know, that's a good problem to have kind of thing.
Yes,
and,
sure.
And part of that ties into, I've seen some discourse on Knicks Twitter where previously mentioned I spend too much time, I guess. But people are calling for some are calling for RJ to come off the bench and for Quickley to start, and whether that makes sense. And I really don't think so. I mean, as much as I just said, Quickley is my favorite player to watch. I want to see a lot of minutes of Immanuel Quickley, but I really think we need him running the show with the second units. Like, he's proven to be a good ball handler, whether he's not like the offensive engine, he still can run second units very adeptly.
Yes.
And I quite like RJ has probably some instincts where he would want to take over more in an offensive, scoring way versus looking for his teammates. And I think I just think the way that this team's constructed, Quickley should be coming off the bench, and that's fine because he's getting a lot of minutes. He's closing games, and so I don't have any issues with that. And like, I understand the point because like Quickley and Brunson have been really good together.
Yeah,
I have, when they play together, there's been 1,300 possessions. They're a plus 11 net rating. Quickley's
really
awesome.
They're a plus 11
with Quickley and Brunson together. They're good on both sides of the ball. They're elite defensively and on offense, which is almost hard to believe given how small that backcourt is. But I mean, Quickley is that good. And like what I really liked in the Lakers game actually was like Quickley was running the show a little bit. Like Brunson moved off ball, and some people would look at that as like a detriment to Jalen Brunson. Like, oh, he's just a shooting guard masquerading as a point guard. I've seen those takes as well. Like he doesn't pass the ball enough. He has tunnel vision. I don't buy into any of that, but I love that Brunson can play off ball. I love that both of them can go on ball or off ball. And it's just like a little bit of a change up having Quickley run the show and have Brunson, potentially catch and attack closeouts. And like we all know he can get to his spots and get a great look against set defenses. Try and get him an easier look, get him off ball, have him attack scrambling defenses, make it even easier on the guy. And it's not like he's going to be even better at that. So to your point, I didn't mean to besmirch Brunson in saying that Quickley is my favorite. I love Brunson too. He's insanely skilled and gifted and a very underrated athlete. People always say he's so crafty and so smart. He's like a head coach on the floor. It's like this dude is also freakishly shifty. I think I've compared him to a running back. Like he's just impossible to stay in front of. And with all the head fakes and the footwork and the coordination, it's like an elite level of hand-eye coordination that people talk about with like Steph Curry, and Brunson just uses it differently. But he is just an incredible athlete. And so, yeah, I like getting him off ball. I like Quickley running the show there. But those two together are really fun to watch. And it just doesn't have to happen to start games. It can just happen when the Knicks need it most.
Well, to the Quickley point guard or Quickley running the show thing, he had 5 assists in the fourth quarter against the Lakers, so, which is like that's pretty good. It's a good indication that he's doing something right. And to your point about Quickley doesn't need to start, I agree with you. Again, the numbers, I have some numbers coming in Wednesday's news or Thursday's newsletter. It's Wednesday today because I can't keep track of days anymore. With like Quickley with Brunson and Randle and no RJ on the floor, and then those two with RJ, it's a big discrepancy. But he's and we've been asking Tom to stagger more, I think, since he's gotten here. I do think what we're seeing now is, I don't want to say it's about as extreme a stagger as you could get, because it's the most extreme, but like it's really, I mean, from midway through the first quarter, like if the first unit's running really well, he'll maybe leave it out there a little bit longer, but usually we get to the, whatever it is, about the 6-minute mark of the first quarter, Quickley comes in, and then you're not going to see the starting 5 together again until like the last, maybe 2-3 minutes of the half. Now that opens up Quickley for an extended stint. I don't think he particularly minds. Do you think that's a problem at all? Or how do you feel about that?
It's so hard to know. I'd like someone to ask him about it, and he'd probably give the company man answer. But it's hard to think he doesn't get a little tired playing like 16, 18-minute stints consecutively. But it's a strange rotation that Quickley is currently in, and I don't know that he's like used to it. He might get used to it, but like it's a lot of consecutive minutes for him specifically. We saw that with Hartenstein too, just because Sims couldn't come back in the game. Sims against the Lakers specifically wasn't good enough, wasn't playing well enough. So like Hartenstein as well had to play just tons of consecutive minutes. And yeah, you can criticize the coach for that for sure. Like there would likely be better ways to stagger those playing stints. But yeah, Quickley's been playing so well that it's hard to like see a real drop off in level of play.
Yeah, I don't. Again, I don't know. I can't speak to it because I don't know. Maybe it's an issue. Maybe it's not an issue. Maybe we're downplaying it too much. I quite frankly have no idea. You watch more film and you analyze RJ more than anyone, and you have been fairer to RJ than anyone that I know of. what, assuming he's not traded in the next week, which I don't think he will be because of the poison pill provision on his contract. Boy, would it be interesting to know what the Knicks would do if that poison pill was not there. Not only what the Knicks would do, but if, like, would there be teams like calling about it? I'm fascinated by that. Anyway, neither here nor there. What's something you want to see, or multiple somethings you want to see from RJ, or something that you feel like you need to see between now and the end of the season to make you feel, I guess, encouraged going into the summer or next year? Or like, yes, this could work with him here for if you do this, X, Y, and Z. What do you want to see?
I mean, it really does. It might sound like a cop out. It starts on the defensive end. Like he has to take more pride there. I think I tweeted out something, a quote from him. It was a year and a half ago where he was talking about wanting to be first team all defense. And it's just like, and I may have brought that up on the last podcast too, but it still has stuck with me because that's who he was. Like we saw him as a legitimate defensive stopper. He's big, he's strong, he's smart. But it doesn't seem like he's taking quite as much pride. I think, early in the season when he was starting alongside Fournier and RJ was guarding the opposing team's best wing player, that was asking a lot of him. Yes. Especially he does still carry a lot of his offensive usage rate is still quite high. Like
it's 25. It's high. Yeah.
He still gets his shots up. Like he still has a big offensive burden. So I think, it was really tough for him to have to go and do that. Since Grimes has entered the rotation and entered the starting lineup, RJ's responsibilities have been much more, realistic and much more reasonable for him. And so I just want to see his effort kind of be commensurate with that role. And like, he doesn't have to take a beating on the defensive end. He can play a little bit of that rover and he can just, be active. I said it last time I was on. I don't want to keep repeating myself.
No,
his block percentage and steal percentage are both in the single percentiles. Like he's
career lows, Tom.
Yeah. You just want to see more activity and just more pride and passion on that end. And people are going to love it. Like make offensive guys feel you. It's like, it's what Deuce does best at is when he's making guys uncomfortable. Because RJ's oftentimes guarding guys who aren't comfortable with the ball already. They're starting it uncomfortable. Like RJ can get into them a bit and wreak some havoc, but we just haven't seen that. On the offensive end, like finding that balance that everyone's talking about, finding the balance of getting his own look versus kicking out to open teammates. Like that's always going to be it for him. We've seen really high level passes that he's made, passes that, were a step ahead of the defense. And I've been shocked by what he's been able to do, but those have been the one-offs. Right. And so and that's actually overstating it. I don't need him to make spectacular passes every time. It's not about that. It's just that he has that capability. It's more so making the simple play, making the right play, finding the open guy. Like the guy's collapsing the defense regularly. Guys can't keep him from getting into the paint. Defenses do collapse. And, some people might say, oh, he needs a pull-up jumper. He needs some better footwork in the post or this, that, and the other. Just find the open man. And you know what? Sometimes you get the ball back when that happens. Sometimes you start a chain reaction and you get the ball back. That happened recently. Julius Randle, this was 2 games ago. I clipped it and never posted it, but he kicked it to Grimes in the corner, who beat his man like he likes to do off the closeout. And guess what Grimes did? He kicked it back out to Randle for 3, who had a wide open 3. It's like do that thing more. And, RJ can learn that example too. And those are the 2 things: defense and then finding that balance of playmaking.
The thing about the spectacular pass that he does occasionally, I don't know, spectacular might be a strong word, but like I'm thinking of the Grimes pass from last night to Hartenstein. That was
play of the night, man. That was amazing. Get out of your seat. Exciting.
Yes. That was wild. And he doesn't do things like that, but he does make very high level passes and really good reads. And I think what's frustrating about it is not like, oh, I want to see more of that. It's like, if you could do that, well, then I damn know you can do the simple.
I know stuff. I know you see the easy one. You see it. And I know, part of RJ's, part of his strength like his mental strength is that he does think he can score over anybody. Like he needs that edge to him too. So you don't want to take that away from him. There's a little bit of that, like Quickley could pull up from anywhere energy where it's like, yeah, he's got a bit of a screw loose. Like he might do that. And that's good. Like you want some of that, but it is just, kind of sanding it down a little and rounding out the edges and figuring out the balance. I keep using the word, but
no, it's the right word. And I guess there's a part of me that wonders if RJ this year looks at, Julius and looks at Jalen and he looks at them and it's like, well, they're allowed to take these shots. Why can't I take, why is it a problem when I take the difficult shot and I don't take nearly as many difficult shots as they do? And I mean, obviously the percentages have something to do with why that should be the case, but like, yeah, I don't know. And I struggle with that too. Like when RJ takes a difficult shot and he makes it, is that a good shot or is that a shot we wish he didn't take? Like if he's going to be the guy that he wants to be, and he's always said that he wants to be, some tough shots are going to be required, but I don't know. I just feel like we've been watching this kid for 3.5 years. We know a good RJ shot from a bad RJ shot. Like, don't you feel like at this point, like what's the difference?
You do. Yeah. You know it when you see it.
When you see it.
Yeah, the part of me thinks that this specific Knicks team would benefit more from the We Here season RJ. The spot up. Not that RJ was exclusively spotting up. We know that isn't the case, but he was very good in that role as a catch and shoot guy. He was so good from the corner, and so yeah, to be a little bit further on that end of the spectrum, I think this team would greatly benefit from that. But does that help RJ's, development, as people like to say? Look,
what does that even mean?
What development
I'm not picking on you, but like
what development is being helpful to your team, And so I think that RJ having some versatility and being able to help his team in multiple ways. When we need you to get downhill and go get a bucket, do that. When we need you to spot up and stretch the defense and hit shots, you can do that too. Like his offensive game could open up a great deal if his 3-pointer started going down again, like it did in that second year. But it's been a little bit more hit or miss this year. So that's just one thing to look out for.
Yeah. I love those are the two things you picked. I don't know. It's easy to point to, I'm trying to think of a good example. Well, you point to either of the guys in LA, I guess, Paul George or Kawhi Leonard, and talk about how it wasn't until years, I don't know exactly when, but like, I don't think Paul George averaged 20 a game until whatever his 4th or 5th year. Kawhi, it certainly took a while. Like that was a methodical growth process where those guys step by step, and their respective teams gave them more and more and more, leeway to continue to do more and more and more. And here's why, people could look at it and say, well, and look what the Knicks are doing. It's like they give him a fair bit of rope in a completely disorganized situation in his rookie year, and then they change his role in his second year, and then in his third year, all of a sudden it's like, hey, here's a 30 usage rate for the last 40 games, and now we're back to now you're going to be third on the totem pole. So that's, I think, very valid, and I'm here for that conversation. But at the same time, like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, when they were going learning the ropes, those guys were defending their freaking asses off, and even when they became the high usage guys, like they still defended their freaking asses off. And that's the frustrating part for me, but you already covered it. I'm not going to repeat what you said.
And there's a part of it, just, it's all connected. Like when you're missing shots on offense, like that unquestionably affects the defense. Like that's where this Knicks defense struggles. It's in transition. It's, I've got the unpredictable stats up here. Like after when it's a half court situation, like the Knicks are a top, let me look at they're a top 7 defense after a made shot. Like when they make a bucket and they can get back and get set, they're a top 7 defense. After a defensive rebound, they rank 24th. After a turnover, 30th. They are not good. They're not good scrambling, getting back. And, there are multiple reasons for that. Some of it is like Randle complaining when he thinks he gets hit, RJ falling down on a take, Jalen Brunson, if he's your guy back, he's too small to affect a transition layup. Like there are a lot of reasons for it, personnel wise. But at the same time, like that's just all to say. It's all connected. You need to get good looks on the offensive end. You can't afford to be taking bad shots because when the Knicks miss, they really struggle to stop the other team. So it's not all happening in a vacuum.
Yeah, no, it's not. That's great. That's such a great point. It's something that that was a big talking point earlier in the year, and I think has gone away as we've concentrated on other things. But like it was an issue earlier in the year, and it's still an issue now.
Well, it's funny you said, because I wondered myself, like, oh, is that all noise from earlier in the season when they were just dreadful getting back? So I filtered in the last month and a half, and they're just as bad. There's really no change. It's not recency bias.
And to end on a positive, I'll shout out our friend Fred Katz, who was on the pod earlier in the week and had a great Immanuel Quickley article that dropped for The Athletic. Like, that's another thing that Quickley helps with, is like the guy who's like pointing and sending everybody where to go in transition defense. Yeah,
man, there was a play in that Lakers game where LeBron was about to go have a 3-on-1 fast break, and Quickley just broke it up. Yeah. Like he created a turnover. It's what Quickley does. He's so active. And just, that's what you need. That's what you need from a guy like him. So thank God for Immanuel Quickley.
Thank God for Immanuel Quickley. That could be the title of the episode if you want, Andrew. Last question. What do you want to see them do or not do before the All-Star break, or before the trade deadline? Excuse me.
It's funny. I think that the the trade deadline acquisition might be in-house. I think you just play Obi Toppin more. Oh. I really do. I think you give Obi Toppin real rotation minutes, and that's your trade deadline acquisition. I've been very disheartened by his usage and his role. Like, he's really just turned into a spot up 3-point shooter. Last year, 1/3 of his shots were threes. This year, it's over half. It's 54% of his shots are from three. Last year, he was taking 58% of his shots at the rim. This year, it's 35%. I think we all know part of it's on player too. It's not all scheme. It's not all on Thibs, but man, there's definitely something there. Something is wrong with Obi Toppin this year, because he's playing in a way we haven't seen his previous 2 years. And it's, maybe Obi's a lost cause at this point. Maybe I'm just kind of like banging my head against the wall, even talking about it. But I don't see a reason why we couldn't try Obi, and tell me if this is crazy, but Obi at like the 3 on offense, and have Randle guard opposing wings, or have Obi guard situation dependent, like your Isaac Okoros of the world, right? And like, Obi Toppin's 3-point rate is crazy high. Julius Randle's 3-point rate is crazy high. This isn't a spacing situation that we're talking about. Like, you could play Obi and Randle and a rim protector and still have 4 shooters on the floor, 4 guys who are willing to let it fly. And like, it's just, it's a little bit of imagination there, but I just think you really need to find a way to get Obi on the floor, because the guy, I talked earlier about Immanuel Quickley's spontaneity and just not knowing what he's going to do. He's probably the one other guy who I'd put in that camp where he has the ball. I don't know what's going to happen. He can go into a dribble handoff. He could keep it and take it all the way like Draymond Green. He can go dunk on somebody. Like, he hasn't done it so much this year. He hasn't shown all the like highlight reel stuff, but like, that's all there. He's still a skilled player. At the end of last year, he put up crazy numbers. In a very different role than the one he's playing now. I know that was against, teams that were tanking or whatever, but I'm really displeased with how Obi's been used. And I know you've brought it up before. He was one of Zach Lowe's players to watch. And like, I'm like you, I'm like a Zach Lowe acolyte of sorts, but I mean, that's crazy. Zach Lowe had a lot of guys to choose from. He chose Obi Toppin, and the dude can barely get on the floor. And when he is on the floor, there's no effort to make him of use. And I think that's hurt his confidence. So I think even when there are little glimmers or chances that he can take advantage of, maybe he's not like mentally ready to do that right now. And I think he's kind of been beaten down. I want to see a concerted effort after the trade deadline. Let's get Obi Toppin more in the mix. There's your acquisition.
They've broken him. We could just say it.
That's what I'm afraid of. And it's what I'm afraid of. He doesn't seem like the type of player that you should be able to break because he has kind of that spirit and that positivity kind of that he exudes all the time. And like, you know, I clipped it when Quickley hit that 3 and Obi Toppin's just like, you know, gesturing and like having fun. He's clearly having fun, but yeah, there's a distinct possibility that it's just not going to work here in New York. And it's too bad. It's just too bad.
That's the thing is like speaking of Hives, there is zero part of me that worries, oh, Cam Reddish is going to get traded somewhere and he's going to like turn around his NBA career. Like that's not going to happen. Obi Toppin, if he gets traded to the right spot. Now, the one before I say some negative things about how the team has gone about things, I will say I do think his ideal situation is a very specific and unique one. And I think it's Indiana. I think he needs a point guard like Tyrese Halliburton. I think he needs to play alongside, ideally, a center like Miles Turner. I think that is his path to 30 minutes a game or whereabouts of like, this guy is, you know, really causing issues for us. Now, do I think there's going to be growing pains? Do I think he still has work to do? Do I think your team is going to be especially good if like Obi Toppin and Miles Turner are your 4 and your 5? Like those are all valid questions, but that's what I would want to see. As far as what has happened here, the path, the number always was, for me at least for the season, was just 20 minutes a game. Get him 20 minutes a game. And the way you did that, it's been a while since we talked about this, but I do think it's relevant, especially with like Randle's struggles in this last game. You play them together a few minutes a half. Doesn't have to be a lot. Or even if you want to confine it to the first half, fine. Confine it to the first half. There's no reason you can't find 3 minutes or 4 minutes a game to play those two guys together against the opposing team's backups, mostly backups. So you're not too worried about what's going to happen on the defensive end at the 4 and the 5. To be clear, I'm not against the idea of playing him at the 3, but like really, what it comes down to is it has to come down to you're playing Julius Randle fewer minutes than you believe he can handle, which comes down to, okay, we have a guy who might be an all-star this year. We're going to take him off. We are going to play him less. We are cognizant of the fact that what we are doing right now might not be in the best interest of our basketball team this year. It was an easier conversation to have last year because Julius Randle stunk last year. This year, it's a different conversation to have. But that is what it means to me, at least, to be invested in a player. And again, part of it is knowing, is this player worth it or is this player not worth it? And I think ultimately, I wonder if they've decided as an organization, yeah, he's not worth it. Because if you really thought he was worth it, I think you would make that sacrifice and you would get him his 20 minutes a game. You would get him his 10 minutes a half for him to actually flourish and be able to do some stuff. And they haven't done that. And the coach deserves most of the blame, but that is not a decision that Tom Thibodeau makes in a vacuum. And that goes all the way up to the top, and the pressure to win every game and the pressure to make the playoffs and the pressure to get better and all of that stuff. We don't have to go through it, but like there's a lot that goes into it. That's where I stand on Obi Toppin. It's unfortunate, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Randle and Toppin have played 145 possessions together this season. I mean, that's nothing. Like the numbers I was saying before with like Brunson and Quickley together, that's 1,300 possessions. We're talking like less than a tenth of that. So it's hard to draw any conclusions of the stats that you see here. In those minutes,
they're bad.
The defense has been dreadful. The offense has been very good. They have gotten outscored, but like I don't put too much stock in that.
Those are high leverage minutes too. He only does it when they're down and the other in high leverage situations. He says that's the only time I'm going to do it. When we're down, we're trying to make a frantic comeback. Those are the last situations that they should be on the floor together. Put them together on a Tuesday night against. I'm trying to think. There aren't that many bad teams against the Pistons or against the Rockets for 5 minutes. But again, the mentality is, we can't risk losing a game against the Riot, even 5 minutes.
Hey man, and that's why I brought up the 3-4 thing, because I know Thibs loves those rim protectors. Try them with Mitch. Try it. They haven't done it this year. I don't think that it's ever been tried. But there have been 0 minutes with Obi, Randle, and Mitch together.
They tried. Obi was at the 3 for like. I may be going crazy. This may be a fever dream. Maybe I'm even thinking of like the preseason. I want to say it happened for like a minute. Andrew has a photographic memory. He may remember, but
so there was according, this is cleaning the glass. This is, filtering out garbage time. But this year it says Randle, Toppin, and Hartenstein played one possession together. And that's,
that sounds right.
And that's it. Like, but beyond that, we have not seen Randle at the 3 with Toppin.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's possible that maybe Randle played the 3 with like Hartenstein at the 4. I feel like that sounds familiar, but
maybe.
Either way, I just want to see anything to get Obi Toppin a few more minutes. And if it doesn't work, I mean, that it's a bummer. And I think that there's a lot of, part of that can be blamed on the organization to an extent, but just try it. But that would be the one thing I want to see. Cause beyond that, trade deadline wise, there's no one here that's really going to get me too excited. Like, I know I've heard you guys talk about Eric Gordon. I'm like, man, these guys are excited about Eric Gordon.
So we've been reduced to. We're excited about Eric Gordon.
These guys are sickos. Like,
no, I'm not going to put that on anybody else. That's me. I like her. I think Eric Gordon's a good basketball player.
But OG, I'm intrigued by. I don't, not all first round picks are created equal, sort of thing. Where if we're talking unprotected, I'm probably out because I'm not obsessed with OG and an Obi. But if we're talking protected first round picks, 3 of them, I'm okay with that. But I don't know. That there's also a balance. Like, is it 1 unprotected and then 1 to 2 protected? It all comes down to the cost for OG and an Obi for me, because I am intrigued by his defensive versatility, and I think him next to RJ would actually be pretty good.
You like that? Okay.
Yeah, Grimes, I know you guys have talked about too before. He is on the smaller side, especially against the opponent's bigger wings. That's a problem for Grimes. So OG, there's no wing too big for OG. So I'm intrigued by it. I liked him coming out of Indiana too. I remember in some mock drafts, I wanted the Knicks to take him, but that was so long ago now. Who can remember?
I would want to see. They would have to, if they actually made that trade and they kept Quickley and they kept Grimes, which God help them if they give up Quickley or Grimes for OG. And I have a feeling I know who the Raptors are asking about. But yeah, I would want them to do a lot of staggering, I think, in that situation. Even more so maybe than they're doing now, but we'll see if that happens. All right. Mr. Piccolo, this was great.
This is fun. Always fun with you guys.
Plug something. Say something before you get out of here.
I got to get an article out for you guys soon. I haven't really put pen to paper much this season.
Anytime, man.
Yeah, I did a preseason column. Not the RJ article. It was the kind of 6 things I used to do a lot. And one of them was that the Knicks need to take care of business at home. And man, you look at those NBA standings. Just real quick, I know you're trying to get me out of here.
No, that's fine.
But the Knicks are currently 12-14 at home, and you just go down to find the next team that's below 500 at home. And
it's only the teams that are tanking.
You'd have to go all the way to the Hornets. Even the Magic are 500 at home. The 13th in the East Magic are 500 at home. The Hornets at 14 in the East are the next team in the conference with a below 500 home record. It's really, really do I have to end on a down note? I don't want to. Hey, this season has been more fun than I expected. How about that? I've been enjoying this season more than I expected. They have won a game or 2 more than I've expected to this point. And so I'm not ending on a downer. This has been fun. I'm glad you had me on. I'm going to write something for you soon. You can also listen to me on Talkin Knicks every week. We have a YouTube channel now. You can see this face even more if that's what you want. I don't blame you if you just go audio only. But and then follow me on Twitter at Tom_Piccolo. I just cracked the 4,000 mark today of followers, so I threw myself a little party.
I'm pretty sure I've said this every time. It is insane that you don't have more followers. I love you're one of the people I have on notifications. I've told you that before. Anytime you tweet something, I get it right to my phone.
I'm sorry about this morning then.
No, listen, again, I don't go on Twitter anymore because I don't have the energy. Godspeed to you that you had the energy today. But yeah, man, your stuff is great. Your clips are great. Your thoughts are great. Your writing is great. So obviously feel free to write anytime you want. And yeah, man, it was great having you on. It was fun.
Appreciate you guys.